Hi, everyone. Happy New Year, which I've been told I can still say until tomorrow. So, Happy New Year to everyone. Want to thank you for joining us today. As you get settled, there are a few reminders. Please use the Q&A section for any questions today, and remember to be constructive in any of those questions or comments to the presenter and to one another to ensure that we have a session that is productive. Also, AIA California will submit your one AIA learning unit for you all who have completed this session live. And as always, the webinar content and additional resources will be available after the session. Today's session, which will focus on transforming work processes and firm culture, is brought to you by BQE. It qualifies for one AIA learning unit for those who watch live, which AIA California again will submit for you once you have finished the session in full. Now to introduce our presenter. As a distinguished thought leader, Steve blends his passion for design and firm management with profound insights into emerging technologies. Over the past 2 decades, working directly with over 1,400 firm owners, Steve has significantly contributed to reshaping these businesses for enhanced growth and sustainability. Steve's career highlights include a 7-year tenure at SOM Chicago, founding BBA Architects in 1993 and growing it to a 17 architects firm before its 2007 sale. And creating ArchiOffice, a groundbreaking project management software company acquired by BQE Software in 2010. Recognized for his significant impact on the profession, in 2009, Steve was elevated to the College of Fellows of the AIA. Currently, as a founder of the Well-Designed firm, he focuses on leading AE firms to operational excellence, mentoring leaders to craft businesses as elegant and innovative as the architecture they create. So now on to today's presentation. Welcome, Steve. Please take it away.
Okay, Rebecca, thank you for that. I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen. So replace current share, I guess. And that should do it. Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. Thanks for attending. This is sort of a different webinar for me in that I have generally, if you've attended any of my webinars, I sometimes like to get into the numbers, the KPIs, those key performance indicators that I've always been so interested in over the years about making a firm as profitable and efficient as possible. And so over the last 20-ish years, I've actually delivered literally hundreds of presentations, mostly about, as I said, encouraging you to embrace some new technologies, or maybe even enact a radical new process that might be able to help you build a better firm. And during all of that time, I've actually found that the status quo is this incredibly potent force that resists the desires that we have as firm owners to create some meaningful change. It's like it's always never that urgent. We got more pressing problems today, and it's been working. It's not great, but we got other problems. So the status quo is really what prevents a lot of change. So a couple of years ago, I read, maybe many of you have as well, the incredibly popular book by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits. And when I read that, I actually recognized how some very small changes that we can make in our lives and our businesses can lead to some pretty remarkable results. And so his thesis actually challenged this notion that we have to make big, bold moves if we want to really create some meaningful change. So today, instead of fighting against the status quo, I am going to be embracing that thesis that Clear gave us and present you with some thoughts about the notion of atomic habits. And that should enable you to finally break away from that undertow that's prevented maybe your firm from reaching its full potential. I'm sorry, there's some alarm going off in the background that's absolutely driving me insane. So hopefully you don't hear that, but I'm afraid you might. Okay, so let me move on to my next slide here. Now, before I do dive in, I just want to indulge me for a second, and thank you, Rebecca, for that very detailed introduction. I just want to explain why I'm actually here presenting this to you today. So a couple of years ago, After selling my third company, I decided that my next chapter really involved sharing so much of what I've learned over 4 decades in our industry, both as a practicing architect, but also as a software entrepreneur serving over 4,000 AE firms. And as a business coach, I today work directly with firm owners, sometimes their key staff, and I've actually become acutely aware of how many firms are just unable to cross that chasm, right? And find the balance between serving their clients, but also just building the sustainable and a valuable business, a business that really isn't there just to serve the owner's lifestyle goals, but maybe creating some real lasting value and can help establish their legacy. And if any of you are interested in learning more about how to make your business as elegant as your architecture, I do invite you, please just visit me at thewelldesignedfirm.com. Not now, but do it after today's webinar, if you could. And sign up even for a free 30-minute meeting with me just to see if I can maybe help you with bringing some real value to you and maybe coach you into building some of those atomic habits that we're going to talk about today. So my objective today is kind of twofold. By the end of this hour, I expect you to be able to look inward, think about some small things that you can start to do right away that can improve your personal and professional life. I'm also going to ask you to sign up for a demo to learn about the technology solution that's offered by today's sponsor, which is BQE Software, which I know has magnificent tools that will allow you to iterate small changes within your firm, which can bring you some really sized results. So look forward to that request at the very end of this meeting. So all of us are really design professionals, and we appreciate the iterative design process where some minor modification and minor improvements going to lead to maybe even an innovative solution. Now, when I was in school studying, I learned about Daniel Burnham's famous saying, make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's bloods, and they probably themselves won't be realized. So with that banner planted in my young mind, I frankly dismissed a lot of the small things. They are, by definition, they're kind of insignificant because all the glory would go to those who attempted and achieved great things. So everything I did wasn't just intended to be big, and I just didn't want to escape notice. But I also, you could maybe tell about my gray hair, grew up in the generation that was moved by President Kennedy's words, challenging us to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely to Earth, not because it's easy, but precisely because it is hard. So I am from that generation that's educated to believe we can, or at least we should, attempt to accomplish big things. Now, today we might refer to this as BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goals. This, of course, is a term popularized by Jim Collins in a book I hope many of you read called Built to Last, Successful Habits of Visionary Companies. So it was really for centuries, I would think, at least until James Clear's book, that we've been glorifying people and companies that shoot for the moon and then land in the stars. Actually, I was never quite sure if it was shoot for the stars and land on the moon, which seemed more realistic, but I think I got that backwards. But you get the point here. Now, today as a business coach, and I'm inspired by this notion of atomic habits, I've come to value the power of subtlety. Now, if you've ever engaged in sports like golf or tennis, you're going to understand the impact of this approach. You know that a very small change in your stance or a grip can bring instant positive results. Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're actually going to look at the stance and the grip that you have on your business and some small changes that will create meaningful results. Again, if you've ever heard me speak before or read my blog articles, you're going to understand I'm a very huge proponent of every firm, regardless of its size, developing an annual strategic plan. One of the critical sections of that plan is stating your goals. What are the goals you're expecting to achieve in 2025, and when do you expect to achieve those? So goals are essential, but how you go about achieving them is what's going to separate a successful firm from failure. For all of you who've got a goal in mind, goals are lovely to have in your head, but what the things you do or how you do them is what's going to actually make the difference in whether you, in fact, even achieve them. Now, most serious golfers might dream of winning the Masters tournament. Most of the competent tennis players would die to win the US Open, but they all follow the same rules as their competitors, and they probably all have the same goals, of being at the top of that podium, but only one of them is going to stand on that podium. So it is not the goal. It's how they go about achieving it. So when I work with my clients, I never question their personal or their business goals. Maybe I should rephrase that. I rarely will question those goals. My job is to help them achieve the goal. So no matter your goals, they could be the big, hairy, audacious ones or very simple, practical, maybe modest goals. Setting them is really going to be the easy part. So the real takeaway is that success isn't just about setting the goal. It is about creating or implementing systems, systems that make achieving those goals an inevitability. Systems shape our daily actions. They guide us toward success. They do it with consistency. They do it with efficiency. So by focusing on building a robust system, we can transform any ambition that we have into a structured path forward where progress is not something that you're just going to hope for. You've actually designed it or engineered it into your company. Now, and I apologize because I use Midjourney to create most of my imagery here, a little AI imagery. It was impossible to get it to create the notion of leverage. So don't come to me later with questions about that's not really a lever. But just want you to know, when you implement systems, what you're really doing is you're introducing this notion of leverage. That means using what you already have, just doing it more effectively to achieve a greater outcome. So just like a lever would allow you to lift a heavy object, you're doing that with minimal effort. Every firm has a number of levers. It could be the technology stack that you have implemented in your firm, and some of your technology might be very simple. Maybe it's the skills that your team has developed. Maybe you've cultivated certain partnerships, or your firm has a very distinct reputation that can help differentiate you amongst your peers. And many of you are going to use these levers for project execution, and even for project acquisition. But I have to remind you that projects come and go. The firm, your business, is what allows you to practice your profession. And if ever there was a project that deserves developing atomic habits and using those levers, that project is what you call your firm. I am going to use a real world example from a firm I work with. It's a scenario that I think some of you might be familiar with, and they might even be in attendance today. But my client's a 9-person architectural firm, and they had set a goal to elevate their firm's profile. They wanted to be recognized as an industry leader within their very specific niche. Despite their ambition, and certainly despite their incredible qualifications, they found themselves in this relentless cycle, dealing with project deadlines, the client demands, constantly coordinating with consultants and contractors. And it left them little to no time to engage in important marketing efforts, like maybe crafting a compelling case study, which I had encouraged them to do, or developing some shareable content, maybe on social media, that might also help improve their SEO of their website. These kinds of initiatives were vital if they wanted to draw interest and cement their firm's reputation as authoritative experts. In their case, it was deep energy retrofit projects. That's what they really focused in on. Now, time slipped by, and my client was continuously deferring their marketing tasks. Then they were promising, Steve, we're going to get around to it. It's going to happen. We just got to get some things out of the way. But weeks morphed into months, and the goal that they set out to achieve in their strategic plan, it was never going to be realized if they continued to operate this way. So during one of our meetings, I pointed out to them that they were highly efficient with the processes that they had developed for project design and project execution. I then prompted them to enact a similar efficient process that was as effective as when a principal will sit down and create a few crude sketches. Those were handed off to a junior team member who would transform that into eventually a complex BIM model. So this is how we traditionally will apply our leverage when we provide our professional services. You invest a few minutes to initiate a process that someone else can develop and refine for us. So I asked one of the principals to simply allocate a mere 30 minutes to create an outline of this first case study, which would then be expanded on by a junior team member. Now, it was pretty smart of me because I said, let's end our meeting 30 minutes early. You have already blocked 2 hours for our regular meeting. And when I hang up with you, you're going to complete this task. Now, by the end of the following week, not only was the first case study completed, it became the centerpiece of a targeted social media campaign that was directing a surge of traffic to a dedicated landing page on their website. That's where they provided this call to action button to download it, that gated PDF case study after the person of interest gave them their name and their email address. Now, I'm not going to pretend that it was as simple as it sounds, but every coach understands some small steps. Get your client off of the couch and into the gym is step number one. And then after a few days, when that person starts to see some results, they get rewarded, they're going to develop some more intrinsic motivation for more of that. They want another hit of that dopamine. So in this instance, the key leverage was derived from something that is not very innovative, or certainly not a technology that's innovative. What we did is we implemented calendar blocking. Calendar blocking is a way to ensure that there is this consistent change in one's behavior. Now, notice how this partner's calendar is extremely structured. So all the items in blue are things to deal with events or tasks around a company overhead. The red items are things that need to be done for their marketing efforts. The orange items are anything to deal with their active projects, the things that are bringing in their money typically. And the gray items are this person's personal events that just might occur during the normal workday. So notice how in the mid-morning and in the later afternoon, these areas are blocked for active projects. Midday is lunch, and after lunch, finally dealing with email. So the mornings tended to be either some company overhead work or marketing tasks, because these, in fact, were the primary responsibilities for this particular partner. But notice that every week there are two recurring, they are now 45-minute long events where this partner does nothing but sits at his desk and sketch out ideas for case studies. Less than 4% of this person's work week was being blocked for a singular focused task. And this is a very disciplined approach, and it yielded some pretty remarkable results. Within 2 months, the firm had produced and shared 5 comprehensive case studies. And they did that again through social media, and they posted them on their website. And without this strategic allocation of time, facilitated by this low-tech technology, of calendar blocking, this principal's hectic schedule would have precluded creating a single case study. And that would have left a pretty significant opportunity to engage or expand their potential client base. It would have left it untapped. So this is just one example, again, of a simple technology-based system implemented and proven to create a dramatic result and a very low effort. No expense was required because the technology is already in the firm. You all have a calendar on your computer. So when it comes to technology, it is not whether you have to have it or you have to buy something all the time. It's actually how you use it. So how do you use your calendar? Now, I'm going to give you 4 examples of leverageable technology systems that could also yield some pretty amazing results. And these are all things that require altering your current habits. The results are going to be huge, but the time commitments to achieve these things are generally pretty small, or as we should say, atomic. So the first one up is consider implementing some kind of a continuous feedback loop within your team and as well as with your clients. This could be regular review meetings. They could be very simple and fast client satisfaction surveys. They could be a post-project debrief or a post-mortem with your client separately and then with your team separately. Now, for a firm that has, let's just say 10 employees and maybe at any moment in time 10 active projects, this should not consume more than 1% of your total team's weekly time. Number two, it's related to, for lack of a better word, a knowledge management system. Within a strategic plan that I talked about earlier that I think everybody should be doing, this is generally part of your or subsection of your operations plan. You must formalize a system for capturing, organizing, and sharing knowledge within your firm. That would include things like what are your best practices, maybe something about your technical expertise, design templates, which generally most of you are probably doing very well, project documentation, and those case studies. Having this system and incorporating it in as a habit in your work week enhances your firm's collective intelligence and the collective efficiency of your office. And if every single one of your employees blocked 90 minutes a week, which is less than 20 minutes a day, and you did it just for this knowledge management exercise, your firm would be amongst the industry's most well-run firms. And all of that effort would consume about 4% of your firm's utilization. Now, I generally don't like to say, trust me, because I don't like hearing people tell me to trust them, but trust me. While it will lower your staff's overall utilization about 4%, it will dramatically increase your firm's realization. If you're not familiar with the term about realization, please, I refer you to either my blog articles or a webinar that I've done that talks about KPIs. And we really talk about my favorite KPI, which is your realization. Okay. So next up, this is the third thing is building a habit to working with sort of a collaborative work management system. Utilizing digital tools that facilitate project management, project communications, collaboration amongst the team members, regardless of where they're physically located, and enables, project tracking, resource allocation, communicating in real time. These kinds of systems will ensure that everybody is aligned and on track. Now, these kinds of systems, once you've properly built and implemented the system, it's going to require about 90 minutes of your staff's efforts each week. And again, that 90 minutes really consumes 4% of your firm's weekly effort. And by the way, this particular task is actually considered utilized time. It's not something that's being wasted for company overhead. It's actually being applied directly for your projects. Now, finally, our fourth leveraging system is probably the one that will require certainly the smaller firms that are here today to go outside of their comfort zone. And it's one of the things that I mentioned earlier, because it's one of those things that usually gets abandoned because of that status quo. But if your firm can implement a client relationship management system, it will enhance your client interactions. It'll enhance how you generate or develop your leads. How do you nurture those leads? And it'll also take you all the way through the project cycle, right up to the completion, and even afterwards. Those kinds of technologies ensure a seamless and a personalized client experience. And a proper CRM system can be automated. It keeps up with all your, the track of all the follow-ups, the tasks and to-dos you need to do. It understands client preferences. It can even identify, if you're having a pretty sophisticated system, new opportunities for engagement or cross-selling or upselling some of your services to clients. Now, once you have built and implemented a CRM system, it would not require more than a total of 4 hours a week for that 10-person firm. Again, we're talking now about 1% of your available time, because it's only 4 hours for the entire firm. So for anybody who's keeping score, if you were to enact all 4 of these leveraging systems that I'm talking about, it would consume 10% of your work week, and it would only lower your effective utilization rate by 6%. Again, the magic isn't in building the systems. It's creating the habit to work with these systems, to exploit or leverage these tools. So I think now what we're going to do is just talk about maybe how we can develop the habit that could make all of that happen. But before I do that, Rebecca, we are going to launch our poll question. So keep making sure you are all still awake with me. And it is, which systems, thanks for launching that, which of the systems are currently underutilized in your firm? And would you prioritize these to enhance efficiency? Now, this is a multi-select poll. So if you think that your firm would benefit from all of these things, you can go ahead and pick them. But I do encourage you, please, change does not come overnight. So if you could use improvement in everything, just pick the one or two that you would like to focus on right away, like right after this webinar, to help improve. And Rebecca, when you sense that things have slowed down, let's go ahead and share the results, because the more time we have at Q&A, I think the more interesting it even becomes.
We're about 50% participation. Just gonna let a few more people chime in. I think you woke them all up.
Oh, good. Wake up, folks. They have to turn around. They were, looking at their, computer, doing something else, drawing something or reading email. Come on, folks, come back. Okay, there we go. So the biggest group are your knowledge management systems, which is gathering all the information about how you operate your firm and making sure everybody is on board and having a real system and a structure behind that. That's followed by project management, always an issue, closely followed by the client relationship management. And only 7% of you are very happy with your systems, and that's terrific. So thank you all for sharing that. I'm going to just go ahead and close that, and we're going to go on here. So I want to share with you the 4 laws that exist. We talked about we're going to try and change your behavior. So there are actually these 4 laws that actually exist to make changes in your behavior. And I take you through these. You're going to probably think some of this is totally stupid. Maybe some of you think, well, that's refreshingly obvious. As a law, these things should be undeniable, like gravity or entropy. So the sooner you acknowledge these are laws and then you embrace them and accept them as part of your life, I think the better off we're all going to be. Then you'll be able to use these laws as leverage, just like maybe if you're this unassuming Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter who can defeat someone who's significantly larger and stronger or heavier than them, because they basically are working with the laws that already exist and not just being a brute about the whole thing. The first law is to make it obvious. So every morning, it's time to get up to begin our daily routine. And the habit that we have when we start our day, it probably speaks a lot about your priorities. Now, studies have shown us that a frighteningly large percentage of you will start your day by, alarm goes off and you groggily reach over to your nightstand and you grab your smartphone and you look at all, the unread emails that have been clogging up your inbox, like plaque forming in your veins while you sleep. Now, depending on what you're going to find there, you're going to spend your day putting out some various small fires while you respond to the dozens of people who are tugging at your shirt sleeves for your attention. And then as the sun starts to set over the horizon, you're going to realize the things that you hoped to achieve that day never actually happened because you spent too much time doing unscheduled things that are out of your control. On a related topic, when I talk about how firms create their fees, many of you will maybe try to want to fix your fees, not just bill hourly. But the areas where we want to fix our fees are the things that are entirely in our control, for sure. Construction documents is an example of something that is 100% under your control. The client has less opportunity to change things. So when things are out of your control, you're just never going to be quite sure. It's going to be, just lucky if you get those numbers right when you're talking about fees. So the obvious thing here is not to start the day by looking at your email. So if you remember that calendar blocking slide where I showed the partners' calendar for a week, that principal wasn't looking at email until lunchtime. So instead of starting with your email, have a system that provides you information as to how your day should be spent. Now, for some old timers like me, you probably will remember the Filofax or the weekly planner. It was this amazingly effective non-digital tool, and if somebody ever lost their Filofax, it was even more catastrophic than losing a cell phone today, because we have the cloud, right? Everything's backed up. Now, today, we actually have business dashboards. Now, these are the descendants of that old pen and paper tool, like a Filofax. So every time you sit down in your car, you're presented with a dashboard, and what is presented to you is carefully considered information to help you have a successful drive. There's no reason for you to waste time looking in the trunk of the car at the flotsam and jetsam that's been rattling around back there, or have to peek under the hood to know how much oil you might have if you're still driving a combustion engine. Please don't drive your business without a dashboard. And don't allow the temptation of things that are rattling around in the trunk to distract you from your journey. The technology you use should give you control over which items are presented to you on your dashboard. So if you're using software that is displaying too much information, or data that is hard to understand or is irrelevant to your personal role or your needs, please look for solutions like that's created by our sponsor today, that give you ultimate control over your working environment. Okay. Now, our second law is, let's make it attractive. No one wants to interact with confusing, cluttered, or unessential things. And I can't think of a better audience than we have today for people who are innately aware of the fantastic value of aesthetics. By removing unessential data and tools from your environment, it's going to become more attractive and more functional. Too much information could be paralyzing. Too little information is going to be ineffective. So you need to find the balance of what is best for you. But again, make sure you are using technology that puts you in control. Now, the third law for behavioral change, if you want it to succeed, is you have to make it easy. So if you think about some of your favorite software tools, those are the things that are really easy to learn, and therefore they can be quickly adopted. So if your firm is using needlessly complex software, you're going to have an impossible time getting people to embrace it and make it part of their daily habit. Now, I can tell you that I have seen hundreds upon hundreds of firms suffer with obscenely cumbersome software tools. They complain ad nauseum about it. But again, it's the status quo that keeps them from making change. And if they're not using cumbersome software tools, my gosh, the extraordinarily complex spreadsheets that they've designed and they have to manipulate are probably even worse. Now, here's an example, because I can't think of a single exception to the now more than 1,400 firms that I have engaged with over these years. Employees hate filling out their time card. It is like a waste of time. Some firms will forego it completely, thinking we only need to track people's time if we're going to bill projects by the hour. However, all of you understand, every hour of every employee's time is like the holy grail of firm success. What projects are consuming their time? What tasks are they performing? What does that time cost you? What does that time, what should that earn you? If you get to know this information, that is how your firm goes from being a business living hand to mouth to becoming an industry leader who can then command the highest fees and the greatest profit margins. I am not going to waste time today telling you all the excuses I have heard about time cards. You probably know some of those issues. But when you have great technology, it makes filling out a time card effortless. Now, over the last 8 years now, I spend on average less than 2 minutes a day logging my hours. It's like brushing your teeth. It becomes a habit. It's easy if your technology can pre-fill your time card with only the projects and the tasks that you should be working on during that particular week. And it's based on the project schedule and what are your responsibilities. Another common problem is preparing reports for business analysis or project status or employee productivity, whatever reports you're looking for. Most firms are going to be using these spreadsheets and a ridiculous amount of manual effort. But again, when you have the right technology, you can have software prepare reports on a schedule. And with smart technology, every employee can have any report that they desire automatically created and delivered to them on the day they need it and actually at the time of day that makes sense for them. Now, if my calendar blocking is set that I want to review a project budget, like the budget versus actual report, I want to see it at 3 p.m. on Thursdays. Just imagine how delightful it's going to be to have that report automatically prepared and delivered to my email inbox at 3 p.m. every Thursday. Not only did it not require any human effort, but the figures are accurate. They're in real time. Now imagine if that report is still not ready for me because somebody is still gathering data and trying to make it look presentable. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have to shift my schedule because I'm waiting at 3 p.m. for a report that does not get on my desk. That is actually how most of us operate. We have these good intentions, but things get in the way or people will disappoint us. This technology system, it's not only easy, it is obvious, and it satisfies actually the last law for behavioral change, which is it needs to become satisfying to you. Okay, when a habit becomes sort of a sustainable habit, the person's going to get satisfaction and positive reinforcement from that new behavior. So with any technology adoption, you should be building a feedback loop and a reward system. And there are countless ways that you could provide some positive reinforcement when you or your team members embrace some new behaviors. Now, earlier I talked about my client who got this hit of dopamine after seeing the impact of having that case study, drive interest in their firm. That's really satisfying. But there are other ways you can engage your staff so that the systems that you implement are actually being accepted and it impacts their daily and their weekly habits. So maybe provide some opportunities for skill development or career advancement. This could include access to some training programs or internal or external, going to conferences or going to workshops, or mentorship opportunities, which can be powerful forms of positive reinforcement. Get those in the schedule, make sure they occur, make sure every meeting that you put in your schedule is actually a sacrosanct meeting. People can't blow those things off. I think overall pretty good at offering flexibility in our work. So maybe enhance a better work-life balance that might increase job satisfaction. So encourage people who endorse these new technologies by giving them extra time to work remotely if that's something that is possible for you. Encourage a culture in the firm where all of your colleagues support and recognize everybody else's efforts. It could be facilitated through these peer-to-peer recognition programs where maybe your employees nominate each other or one another for demonstrating some or embracing some new habits or behaviors. And it's very helpful to provide with your employees with some sort of a constructive feedback and coaching as they adopt these behaviors. So regular feedback sessions help your employees understand their progress, identify areas for improvement, and stay motivated. I can't tell you the number of firms that when we talk about employee performance reviews, they have not scheduled them. They have good intentions. They're not on the employee's schedule, then they're not on their schedule. It's just up to somebody to finally say, hey, let's sit down and talk about this. And usually it occurs when employees like looking for a raise or the end of the year. These are things that need to be much more contact points throughout the year. So there's a few other items here that I have on this list, giving them some other career advancement opportunities, and just fostering a very supportive work environment. So keep those in mind for you there. I have very often spoken about the need for a firm owner to reframe what is the purpose of having a business. And too many people believe it is just there to give you a platform from which you can satisfy your need to design a new project. Now, I believe your firm is the single greatest project you will ever get to work on because you own that asset and you can constantly iterate to approach perfection. Just think about any project you've had built and you walk in there and you like look at maybe your flaws. I wish I had moved that, you know, return grill 6 inches to the right, or that fire sprinkler, is off in the wrong place. You can't change these things, but the thing you can do with your firm is you can constantly tweak it and approach that perfection. And if you are a professional who enjoys innovation, there is no better subject than your firm to express that particular urge. And I could think of no better tool than technology to enhance your ability to innovate within your firm. You're going to be amazed at what can happen to your business's health when you encourage a culture that embraces experimentation and learning. Now, in my business and for each of my clients, I block 2 hours every week to focus on implementing just innovation. Let's just do it within our company. An innovation that's going to add value to the business, not necessarily, not, but it doesn't mean it can't, but not necessarily to any one of your projects. And when your firm shifts into becoming a business innovator, you're going to build substantial value, and that's going to reap some real rewards for on various fronts, from client acquisition to employee retention to project execution. And of course, at the bottom of that is overall profitability. Now, we're going to get to Q&A in just a moment, but throughout this presentation, other than the times when I've been showing you these mid-journey AI images, I've been trying to illustrate some of my points, and I have been using today's sponsor, BQE Software. I've been using their cloud platform. It's called BQE Core. If anybody out there is not using BQE Core, I'm going to ask you, please get a demo. I promise you, the time that you spend looking at Core will be time well spent. Again, over 4 decades in the industry, I have learned that firms that implement smart technologies like this, they're not only high performing, but they're going to use the time and the money they save to invest in building a better firm culture. They can pay higher salaries, which will attract not only better employees, but down the road, that also attracts better clients. I'll also ask you, please do your homework. Research the other software solutions that are out there. But if you're not using any firm or project management programs, or even if you are using one of the other systems on the market, get a demo of Core just so that you could see what the differences are. And fortunately for us in the AE industry, there's only about 4, maybe 6 if you stretch it, systems that are on the market that are truly purpose-built for the AE industry. And so you owe it to yourself and your firm. Look at these things. And if you're currently, just using spreadsheets, pick 3 systems to evaluate. Make sure Core is on that list, and it's worth seeing firsthand what these systems can do. Make sure you get a personal demo of all of the from all the providers, and ask them all the hard questions, because not every system is right for every firm. It's got to really fit you. And I just ask Rebecca, if you could just go ahead and launch that poll question. And while that just sits up there, we can be happy to address any questions that people have. Yeah, so let's go ahead and leave that poll question up there. So Christy or Rebecca, whoever, come on back and see if there's any questions for me.
Of course. Thank you, Steve, for that fantastic presentation. Okay, so moving on, we're going to start with our questions. Number 1, how do you only spend 2 minutes per day on your time card? Would love to know tips. I have to spend 10 to 15 minutes per day on my time card, specifying which tasks, I was doing for which project, and it is the bane of my existence.
No, I know that pain. I used to live in that pain. This is why I'm asking you, please say yes to you want a product demo from BQE Core. I use BQE Core to manage a lot of my business, and they do manage my time card. So what happens is when you use the software properly, you have all your projects, you have all your employees, you have a project schedule in the system. It knows schematic design is going to happen between, January 15th and, February 12th, and then DD is happening from February 3rd to June, whatever it is, just it has the schedule and it knows who's going to be working in those activities. So when I go to my time card every week, my time card is already showing me the things I should be working on that day, that week. It tells me I've been given 30 hours to work on this. I've already used up 14 and what I have remaining. So that at that point, all I need to do is put my cursor in that square, say I worked on it today for 2.25 hours. I can add a little note about what I worked on and I'm done. It's 2 minutes a day. So please, if any of you are finding yourself suffering through time cards, this is why it becomes such an unbearable task for people. And that's why their time is also all over the map. If you don't put your time in as close to real time, meaning it's, let's just say the average thing is like it's Thursday and I'm putting in time what I did on Monday because I haven't done my time card this week. I'm going to just make a guess at that. Oh, I spent 2 hours on this project and 3 hours on that project, or 3 hours on the other project. And the truth of the matter is, it could have been 1.5 hours, 2.25 hours, and 3 3/4 hours. Now, that doesn't sound like it's a big problem, but it is if you do it day after day, week after week. The end, if you're looking at business analytics, project analytics, you're realizing everything is just a mess. It's just bad data. So if you have a system like BQE Core that can allow you to put in your time card that day at least. I know people who keep their phone by them, having their core time card on their phone on the screen, and they just start and stop and start and stop the timers. And at the end of the day, they just say, I'm done. And it just does it all. So that's when you're going to get really much more accurate information. It's helpful for proposal building in the future. It's helping if you bill hourly to getting that accurate. So that's my long answer to a short question.
That's a fantastic answer. That was extremely helpful. Okay, moving on to this is an interesting one because AI, right? What tasks are you using AI to create more efficient processes? Do you have any concerns over project privacy?
So it's the great frontier. It's the Wild West with AI. And this week I've started working with DeepSeek, as I'm sure you've all heard in the news, and it is phenomenal, although it does not give imagery yet. But so I still use ChatGPT a lot. But it's, I have not yet seen it implemented as a process, meaning it is somewhat automated. Um, but I use it every single day, multiple times a day. I use it a lot for correspondence. I do a lot of research with AI. And if you have a client, by the way, DeepSeek is trained on a set of data that is not current, whereas things like ChatGPT, by the way, are now live with data on the internet. So if you're trying to do research for a project or a client of yours that you're interested in, DeepSeek's not the answer just yet. But it's great for that. I know that AI is being heavily looked into by certainly CAD, BIM companies out there, not to name any. I know today's sponsor has already implemented AI in certain areas. But there's many varieties of ways you can use AI. A lot of times I'll use it in research for my blogs. You can't ask it to do your work for you. I find it's still not anything worth reading. But I do think that if you regularly block time to say, once a week, I'm going to spend 2 hours working with various AI tools for firm like yours and just see what's there, you'll at least be aware of what's happening and the changes that are happening and decide which ones are useful to you. But I can't say I've seen anything about built in yet into your normal working process from what I've seen. Okay, Christy.
Thank you. What's a great brief example of how you use or have used BQE?
Well, I gave you an earlier one previously, which was just a time card. It is, bar none, I think, the most extraordinary time card out there. I use the mobile app, which has some features that are unique, including location tracking and mileage tracking. So I leave mine on 24/7 because the data never actually leaves my phone. Like it's not known by BQE until I decide when it points out to me that I just spent 2.5 hours, at a client's office or at a project site, and that it says, oh, those 2.5 hours should be linked in your time card to being spent at that project because it knows the client's address and it knows the project address. So those are pretty phenomenal. It also knows all my travel, car mileage, and it recommends I started at my client's office or I ended at the project site, and either way, and it just says, oh, those geocodes linked to a project. So would you like that, $7.20 to be charged to that project? And I just say yes, and it goes, boom. So it's now added into the system. So those are kind of fun things. The dashboards are extraordinary. As I mentioned, dashboards as a way to start your day are the best thing I know. I log in, I see what my day's tasks are. What am I, what are the to-dos? I can look at other people's tasks and add tasks for them. So it's unlimited, the things. It has a CRM module for those firms that want to tack that on as well. And proposal builder inside of that. You can have your all of your promotional materials. Like say you have a PDF, maybe you do multi-unit housing or hospitality work or health clinics or whatever you might have. You'll have all of these collateral. It has a nice library for you. And then when you put together a proposal or communication with a prospect, you can link all those and it just will send off the email. There's a lot of wonderful things. The thing I love about it, though, is it puts a structure into your firm where everybody follows the same structure. It's sort of like, just imagine every time you had a new project, people started with a blank template for their CAD or BIM drawings, and they just do their own layer system. They have to create their own symbols. How much smarter are you when you have a template that includes the library of symbols and door details and whatever you have, it's there. The layer system, that you invest a lot of time into so that everybody benefits from it. If you don't do that, you probably know the misery you go through. Everything is like, it's reinventing the wheel every time you have a project. So BQE Core can be as simple or as layered as you like, depending on the needs of your firm. And you design the system and your dashboards to be the information that you want. So I rambled on there, Christy. I hope that's not a problem, but what else you got?
Not at all. Okay, now Steve, you mentioned the implementation of CRM. So our next question is, at what company size would you recommend implementing a CRM project management system?
One. Now, I'm not saying that should be the BQE Core CRM, but I think if you're a one-person firm, let me put it this way. If you're a one-person firm, you probably have CAD software. Let's just, I won't name the names. Okay, there's a variety out there. You've got some CAD software. For many of you who are one-person firms, you probably are using the same CAD software that firms with hundreds and thousands of employees are using. Now, you don't say, well, it's being used by a multinational architectural firm, therefore I can't use it. You get benefit from it. You get trained on how to use it, and if it weren't working for you, you would be using drawing on vellum or mylar with a pen or paper. It would just be the old drafting table ways. So you recognize technology makes a difference in your day when it comes to the deliverables and the designs that you do. Okay, you just make sure it's the right tool. So somebody might be, well, let's just say somebody might be using SketchUp for 3D modeling because they don't want to use BIM modeling software. It's more than they really need. You have to find the right fit, but you know that there's a technology out there to help you with this. So get a technology to manage your client list. It could be your existing technology. Honestly, if you just have an address book in your computer, make sure that there's a group for your clients or your prospects. Break it down. So if you have an announcement to make, like we just finished a new project, you can easily send it to the entire group. That means you're not using a bona fide CRM system that's out in the market, but you've got some kind of system in your firm to allow you to do this. Otherwise, every time you want to send something, you've got to remember, who are the people I want? You can have notes. So many of you can have notes. They're not easily mineable. You can't like typically say, search all of my contact records to find the ones who have a tagline, a tag in it, like hospitality or restaurant or something like that. But if you have a system that's designed around CRM, whether it's core or something you built yourself, that makes that even better. So the short answer is, I personally believe, regardless of firm size, everybody should have systems in place, whether it's for CRM or anything else. And it doesn't mean that you have to aspire to be 5 people or 10 people, but you have to have a system.
I hope that
Okay, you're back.
answered. That was
It's like
a great
I feel like a
response.
lecture. I feel like I'm like,
Yeah.
do this. Okay.
Okay, let me see. Okay, how do you motivate employees who are just content with what they do every day? Basically, draftsmen who are
Yeah.
content but are not growing or content.
Content. Yeah. I understand
Yeah.
what you meant. No worries. So this is why it's important to regularly touch base with your staff. You need to understand what are their personal goals. There are some people, like I work with quite a few firms who are trying to deal with succession planning. Their founders are getting older and they're realizing they don't have anybody else in the office who's going to become the owner of that firm one day, to take it over. And they don't feel like it's a marketable firm. So they don't have any employees who are really been groomed to take on leadership at the firm level. So you have to acknowledge there are some people who just love being handed work to do. They like 9 to 5. They don't want the headaches and the gray hairs that come along with owning a firm. So, and Christy, this is, I think, the webinar you were at with me yesterday, where I was talking about the transitioning the leadership of the firm. So if you sit down and you speak with each of your employees to find out what are their goals, their ambitions, their skills, you create the Venn diagram between let's say, what your company needs, what their skills are, and what their desires are, find that sweet spot. You might find out that person might actually be very suitable to do a task in your firm that you didn't realize, but you don't know that because you're not talking to them well. And in that webinar that I gave yesterday, we just talked about what are the cues that you should be looking at in individuals, and how do you hire people who will move into leadership roles. So yeah, if you don't have if you people are just content doing what they're doing all day long, you're going to need other people in the firm who have the ambition to take over your job one day. Don't be afraid of that. Actually embrace it, nurture it, and then they won't leave you to go do it for themselves or someone else. They'll actually find a home that they can inherit from you. Okay.
I think we have time for one more question, so this might be a quick one. So, Steve, you mentioned, productivity. So, talking about productivity habits, you mentioned time blocking by one firm, but what are your thoughts with other methods like Maker versus Manager, GTD?
What was the last one? GTE? What was
GTD.
GTT. Do you know what that means? GTT. Anybody?
Let's see.
Trying to remember what the context would be for GTT. Okay, so maker versus manager I can address.
Getting things done.
Getting things done. Okay, I don't know all the acronyms. I'm too damn old. Okay, so yes, this is what you do when you everything that has to be done in your company, whether it's project related or part of your strategic plan. Maybe you want to do something new with your website or whatever it might be. These are overhead kinds of things. They should all be addressed by what are the things that need to be done and who's best qualified to do these things, or who can we challenge to do these jobs, who's interested in challenging work. So sometimes people are, like the previous question, are content in doing things because no one's challenging them. So they just seem like they're content. It's just like another Groundhog's Day for them every day they go to work because nobody's throwing something interesting in front of them. So yeah, there is a need for maker and manager. Sometimes they're the same people for the smaller firms, and you just switch your hat. It's not always effective to have the manager be doing the making, even though they have the qualifications to do that, because there might be a higher and better use of their time, like maybe getting more work or helping build the systems within the office that can benefit you down the road, but they can't benefit a project at the moment. But I think that should always just be in your mind. You don't want to give people work which they have no interest in learning, no skills to actually achieve it. But at the same time, there should be a balance of giving people the work that needs to be done, and then a percentage of that work would be things that they can be sort of aspirational to them. I don't know if they're still doing it, but Google for many years was making a lot of their developers were allowed something like 20% of their time each year was allowed for them to pursue their own projects within the company. Okay, let them innovate. Okay, I'm not having pressure to deliver something for you because I'm a maker. You're letting me think about something that I can do for our company, or a new product, a new offering, whatever it might be. That's really compelling work for certain people. Okay.
Fantastic. So we've reached, it's actually 2 minutes past.
Thanks for sticking around, folks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Rebecca, it's all yours.
I'm just gonna mirror those thanks. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Steve, for the informative presentation, and thank you, BQE. We'll see you at our next one. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Take care.